North Korea deploys special assets against South Korea. Takaichi posed to become Japan's first female prime minister. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I am Olivia Nicholas. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said Pyongyang has allocated strategic assets to respond to the build-up of U.S. military forces in the south and vowed to develop additional military measures. The U.S. stations about 28,500 troops in the south to fend off military threats from the nuclear-armed north, and last month conducted a joint military exercise with its security allies South Korea and Japan. Pyongyang routinely denounces such drills as rehearsals for invasion, while the allies insist they are defensive in nature. Kim said in direct proportion to the U.S. military arms buildup, North Korea's strategic concern about the region has also grown, and accordingly, the country has assigned its special assets to the major targets. Without clarifying what the special assets were, he said he is closely monitoring the military development across the border. He said North Korea will undoubtedly develop additional military measures to prepare to respond to the buildup of U.S. forces. A U.S. warehouse official confirmed that Jared Kushner and U.S. envoy for West Asia, Steve Witkoff, are traveling to the region to address the finalization of details on the release of hostages and to discuss the deal pushed by the U.S. president to bring an end to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Donald Trump said on his Truth Social platform that Israel had agreed to an initial line of withdrawal in Gaza and the information had been shared with Hamas. He said when Hamas confirms an agreement, the ceasefire will immediately effective, the hostages and prisoner exchange will begin, and the conditions for the next phase of Israeli withdrawal will be created. The Palestinian group Hamas on Friday reacted positively to Trump's 20-point plan that would end 2 years of war, saying it was ready to release all hostages and discuss details on the deal. Trump's plan specifies an immediate ceasefire and exchange of all hostages for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, a staged Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and the introduction of a transitional government led by an international body. Meanwhile, Israeli bombardment killed at least 57 people since dawn yesterday, even after U.S. President Donald Trump urged Israel to halt its attacks on the territory. Spokesman for Gaza Civil Defense Agency Mahmoud Basal said the fatalities included 40 victims in Gaza City alone. Basal said the victims in Gaza City included 18 people who were killed in an Israeli strike targeting the home of the Abdul Al family in the city's Al Tufa neighborhood. Resident of Al Rimal neighborhood in Gaza City, Mahmoud Al-Ghazi said since President Trump called on Israel to stop bombing Gaza, Israel has actually escalated its attacks. He noted that the shelling continues with artillery and drones dropping bombs on civilian homes and directly targeting people. Hamas said in a statement that the continuation of the occupation's bombing and massacres exposes Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu's lies about reducing military operations against civilians. Trump previously said he believes Hamas had shown it was ready for a lasting peace, and he called on Israel to halt airstrikes on Gaza. Israel's military campaign has killed more than 67,000 people in the territory, most of them civilians. Huge numbers turned out at pro-Palestinian rallies in Europe calling for an immediate end to the war in Gaza and the release of activists on board a flotilla carrying humanitarian aid to the territory. The police in Rome said some 250,000 turned out for a fourth day of protest against Israel intercepted the 45-strong flotilla seeking to reach Gaza earlier this week. Protesters in the Italian capital, including families with children, carried Palestinian flags and chanted slogans demanding Israel to stop the genocide. Over in Spain, some 70,000 people took to the streets in Barcelona, according to the police, while the government in Madrid said nearly 92,000 marched in the Spanish capital. The protesters said Israel policy has been wrong for many years and people have to take to streets regarding the matter. Elsewhere, several thousand people marched through the centre of the Irish capital, Dublin, to mark what organisers said was 2 years of genocide in Gaza. The speakers called for sanctions on Israel and an immediate end to the conflict apart from Palestinian involvement in the ceasefire plan. German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt hosted a roundtable discussion with his EU counterparts and EU Commissioner for Migration Magnus Brunner as part of the Munich migration meeting. The talks were expected to focus on the reorganization of European migration policy. However, Dobrindt and the EU Commissioner for Home Affairs and Migration, Magnus Brunner, made only moderate efforts to keep the topic at the centre of attention. This was because the recent drone sightings over Munich dominated the atmosphere and instead put Europe's security issues centre stage. Brunner described the current incidents in Germany as attacks in the heart of Europe. Dobrindt also stated last week that the topic of drone defence would be on the agenda of the meeting, which seems to be even more relevant now amid Thursday's and Friday's drone sightings at Munich airport. The Munich airport disruption was the latest in a series of similar incidents that have rattled European aviation, raising concerns about deniable hybrid attacks on Ukraine's European airlines, possibly directed by Russia. The Kremlin, however, has denied any involvement in the incident. On a related note, Munich Airport said it was gradually resuming flights hours after both runways were closed for the second time in less than 24 hours due to a drone sighting. The airport website advised travellers to check with the airlines as it prepared for the restart 2 hours later than originally scheduled after the Friday evening closure. Authorities said dozens of flights had been diverted or cancelled, stranding some 6,500 passengers. European aviation has repeatedly been thrown into chaos in recent weeks by drone sightings that some authorities have blamed on Russia. The Kremlin, however, has denied any involvement. Authorities have yet to attribute Thursday's or Friday's drone sightings to a specific actor. Munich Airport was also closed for several hours later on Thursday and in a small hours after unconfirmed drone sightings that disrupted dozens of flights. French authorities deployed dozens of police officers to the southern French city of Nice after 2 people were killed and another 5 received injuries in an apparent drug-related shooting. The assault took place late Friday in the low-income neighbourhood of Les Moulins, reputed to be a drug-dealing hub in the west of the city. 2 of the 5 wounded people were minors. The attackers travelling in a car opened fire on people near a drug-dealing spot in the central square of the Les Moulins neighbourhood, which is home to around 8,000 people. A vehicle matching the description of the one used by the suspects were found burnt out in the town of Morgins, not far from Nice, shortly before midnight. Prosecutor Damien Martinelli informed that the shooting was linked to drug trafficking, but some of the victims were believed to be inadvertently shot. One of the victims injured in the shooting remained in critical condition. The police officers were instructed to remain in the area for as long as necessary. Still ahead, U.S. judge blocks Trump's deployment of National Guard. Japan's ruling party, newly picked President Sani Takaichi, has vowed to rebuild the Liberal Democratic Party and make it a brighter party that is devoted to its people. Takaichi, Japan's likely next prime minister, said the government and central bank must work closely to ensure the economy achieves demand-driven inflation backed by rising wages and corporate profits.
とにかく、私は今回、自民党の景色を少し変えることができるんじゃないかと思っております。明るく元気に前向きに、そしてひたむきに懸命に働く姿、多くの国民の皆様に見ていただけますように誠心誠意頑張ってまいります。
While the world's fourth biggest economy is already experiencing inflation, it is premature to declare it fully on stagnation, as recent price rises have been driven by high raw material cost. Takahashi is said to be Japan's first female premier after winning a ruling party leadership race. After her victory, Takahashi laid out various plans to cut taxes and increase subsidies, but said she understood the importance of fiscal prudence. Billionaire Andrej Babis' ANO party cruised to victory in the Czech Republic's parliamentary election, raising the prospect of a government that would boost Europe's populist anti-immigration camp and reduce support for Ukraine. Babis rejected accusations that his win would make the Central European nation a less reliable European Union and NATO partner. ANO party members also reaffirmed their commitment to EU and NATO membership while detailing key policy priorities, including reducing energy prices and reforming pensions. Deputy Chairman Karel Havlicek said EU and NATO membership was a red line for the party, emphasizing the intent to reform, not dismantle the European Union. With nearly all results in, ANO was set to replace the current centre-right cabinet led by Prime Minister Beth Fiala. Fiala congratulated Babis and conceded defeat. ANO promised faster growth, higher wages and pensions, and lower taxes and tax discounts for students and young families during the campaign. A federal judge has temporarily blocked U.S. President Donald Trump from deploying 200 Oregon National Guard troops to the city of Portland while a lawsuit challenging the move plays out. The ruling by U.S. District Judge Karen Emigot in Portland is a setback for Trump as he seeks to dispatch the military to cities he describes as lawless over the objections of the Democratic leaders. Emigrant, who was appointed by Trump during his first term, blocked the Republican president from sending troops at least until 18th of October, saying there was no evidence that recent protests rose to the level of a rebellion or seriously interfered with law enforcement. The Portland's lawsuit was filed by Democratic Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield on 28th of September, a day after Trump said he would send troops to Portland to protect federal immigration facilities. Oregon asked the court to declare the deployment illegal and block it from ongoing forward, saying Trump was exaggerating the threat of protest against his immigration policies to justify illegally seizing control of state National Guard units. Georgian police used pepper spray and water cannon to force protesters away from the presidential palace in the capital Tbilisi amid a large demonstration on the day of municipal elections. A group of protesters attempted to force entry to the presidential palace after some opposition figures called for a peaceful revolution against the incumbent Georgian Dream Party, which they accuse of being pro-Russian and authoritarian. The country's pro-Western opposition has been staging protests since last year, when Georgian Dream won an election that its critics say was fraudulent. Georgian Dream then froze Georgia's European Union accession talks, abruptly halting a long-standing national goal. Yesterday, armed riot police drove protesters from the presidential palace using pepper spray and water cannon in the final minutes before polls closed in municipal elections, which Georgia's largest opposition blocs have boycotted. China's National Meteorological Center has issued an orange alert, the second highest in its fourth-tier warning system for Typhoon Matmo. The typhoon is expected to land in the country's southern coastal areas, bringing strong winds and heavy rains to Hainan, Guangdong and Guangxi. Matmo, the 21st typhoon of the year, was observed about 660 kilometers east-southeast of Chinese coast, moving at a speed of 25 to 30 kilometers per hour. Forecasts indicate it will make landfall along coastal areas ranging from Dianbai in Guangdong province to Wening in Hainan province. Guangdong has issued a level 2 emergency response to winds, and all fishing boats operating in the waters west of the Pearl River estuary have returned to port to take shelter. Hainan, meanwhile, has issued a level 3 emergency response to winds and floods. All inbound and outbound flights in Haikou Meilan International Airport are expected to be cancelled. China has a 4-tier emergency response system, with level 1 being the most severe response, and a 4-tier weather warning system, with red representing the most severe warning, followed by orange, yellow and blue. Next up in sports, Arsenal go top as Liverpool suffer defeat at Chelsea. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta celebrated 300 games in charge with a stress-free 2-0 home win over West Ham United in a lopsided derby that underlined the reason many people are predicting his side could finally deliver the Premier League title. Arsenal should have gone ahead when Bukayo Saka's low cross caused chaos in the West Ham area, and when the ball was only half cleared to Eberechi Eze as he blazed his effort over the bar. Eze is still waiting for his first league goal for Arsenal, but he had a big hand in Declan Rice's goal. His shot on the turn was saved by keeper Alfonso Areola, but when the ball rolled out to Rice, he made no mistake planting his effort high into the net in the 38th minute. Arsenal's domination continued after the break, and they doubled their lead when Julian Timber was brought down by El Hadji Malik Diop, and Saka calmly dispatched his penalty to mark his 200th Premier League appearance in style. It capped a fine week for Arsenal, who snatched a late comeback win at Newcastle United last weekend before beating Olympiacos in the Champions League on Wednesday. In another match, a stoppage time winner from teenager Estavio Avillion earned Chelsea a 2-1 victory over Liverpool in the Premier League, condemning the champions to a third defeat in a row in all competitions. Chelsea midfielder Moises Caicedo put the home side ahead in the 12th minute with a thunderous shot from outside the area. Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate stood off the Ecuadorian, and he found space and sent a rocket past Georgi Mamadashvili into the top right corner. Liverpool had looked to have secured a point through a second-half equaliser from Cody Gakpo. The Dutch forward scored in the 63rd minute with the visitors upping the pressure, pushing home a flick from Alexander Isak. However, Chelsea's work rate and intent shaded the contest. Enzo Fernandez hit the post in the 90th minute before speedy substitute Estavio hit the winner. The 18-year-old Brazilian poked home from a Mark Chuchuela cross in the 5th minute of added time for his first Chelsea goal in a fast and furious game at Stamford Bridge. The result left Arne Slot's team in second place in the table on 15 points, one behind Arsenal. Chelsea, meanwhile, rose to 6th place on 11 points. Moving on to tennis, world number 2 Jannik Sinner launched his Shanghai Masters title defense by breezing past Germany's Daniel Altmaier 6-3, 6-3. Sinner looking to become the first player to win back-to-back titles at the ATP Masters 1000 event since Novak Djokovic in 2013 overpowered his German opponent in just 1 hour and 38 minutes. Sinner, fresh from winning the China Open, broke early in both sets to take control and ease himself comfortably into the third round. The 49th-ranked Altamair's best chance came in the 8th game of the first set, but he failed to convert a breakpoint twice, allowing the Italian to hold with an ace. The second set provided even less opportunity to seriously bother the 24-year-old Wimbledon champion, but afterwards Sinner said it had been more difficult than it looked. The win helped Sinner earn a measure of revenge, having lost to Altamair when they last crossed paths at the French Open in 2023. Sinner's path to retaining the title has been made easier by the withdrawal of great rival Carlos Alcaraz, who dropped out at the last minute to rest. The Italian's next match is against the Netherlands' Talon Griekspoor later today. Elsewhere, Linda Noskova stunned Jessica Pegula 6-3, 1-6, 7-6 to reach the China Open final. Czech Republic's Noskova won a 2.5-hour battle against former US Open finalist Pegula to reach her first WTA 1000 final. Noskova landed 4 aces and frustrated the world number 7 with her shots from tight angles to win the first set 6-3. Pegula bounced back to dominate the second set, having success with shots down the middle as Noskova succumbed to a 1-6 loss in less than half an hour. The third set tested both players in an 84-minute battle of grit as neither could hold serve in the first 4 games. Pegula earned a break to go 6-5 up and serve for the match, but Noskova saved 3 match points to force a tie break. The American quickly went 3-1 up but made 2 unforced errors that led Noskova back in, and she fell to her knees after Pegula's backhand return landed wide to end the grueling match. Noskova will next meet Amanda Anisimova of the US in the final later today. Noskova is after the second title of her career and first at the 1000 level. Meanwhile, US Open runner-up Amanda Anisimova advanced to her second WTA 1000 final of the year, outclassing defending champion Coco Gauff 6-1, 6-2 in the other semi-finals of the China Open. Seeded third in Beijing, Anisimova continued her stellar season, which includes runner-up finishes at Wimbledon and the US Open. The win also gave the 24-year-old American a 2-1 edge in her head-to-head record against compatriot Gauff. Anisimova stormed into a 5-love first set lead in 15 minutes as an uncharacteristically shaky Gauff hit a slew of shots along and into the net. The 21-year-old reigning French Open winner double faltered twice to give Anisimova 2 set points before finally getting herself on the scoreboard. However, it was far too little, far too late. Gauff's nightmare continued in the second set as Anisimova again raced into a 5-love lead over her compatriot. Gauff managed to close that deficit by 2 games, but a commanding Anisimova closed out in less than an hour. It was Anisimova's quickest win yet in the Chinese capital, where she pulled off 2 3-set comebacks. In our offbeat segment, Ironmonger brings Ireland's ancient past to life. On a farm that straddles one of the 5 ancient roadways that radiate from the hill of Tara, once the seat of the High Kings of Ireland, a master blacksmith is offering visitors a hands-on glimpse into the country's Celtic past. Tomkin traded in a 20-year career as a design engineer during the COVID-19 pandemic to take visitors beyond the static tombs and monuments of the 6,000-year-old remains that make up one of Ireland's best-known national monuments. Dressed in sheepskins with a leather apron and a thick red beard, King invites visitors to don the traditional attire, learn ironworking techniques, hear stories by firelight, and walk through woods on the road to Tara, located 40 kilometers northwest of Dublin. With an interest from childhood in the Iron Age history of his local surroundings, King believes the myths, tales and painstakingly learned ironworking craft should be protected and passed on to the next generation. While its landscapes, heritage and hospitality remain central to Ireland's tourist offering, King's Forge is also part of a growing trend of people seeking physical, old-school experiences as a break from the digital world. Japanese electronics maker Casio introduced a palm-sized companion robot powered by emotional AI that can evolve into more than 4 million unique personalities. Mufflin is designed to behave less like a toy and more like a small pet, responding to everyday handling with coos, head movements and posture changes. Under the fur, Mufflin uses a microphone, light and touch sensors, plus an accelerometer to interpret handling and powers up via a charging bed. It is able to read movement, touch, light and ambient sound and adjust its internal state over time, so the robot's reactions shift as it bonds with its primary owner.
So Mufflin is all about non-verbal communication. It has an inbuilt emotional map and it responds to light, to sound and to touch. Over time, it can grow a bond with its owner based on the way that you interact with it. It will elicit unique responses so that after 50 days of maturation, it becomes unique to its owner. And the idea is to, again, form an emotional bond and connection that mimics kind of lifelike animal expressions.
Rather than relying on cloud processing, Casio said Mufflin is a self-contained system that processes sensor data locally to generate behaviors. The tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep III, one of the largest in southern Egypt's Valley of the Kings and Queens, was officially opened to the public after years of restoration. Egypt's Tourism and Antiquities Minister Sharif Fatih unveiled to reporters the newly refurbished site, which dates back more than 3,000 years. Mohammed Ismail Khalid, head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, said restoration involved more than 2 decades of incredibly delicate work because the tomb was suffering severe deterioration. The colossal space boasts floor-to-ceiling wall paintings with the bright blue of the frescoes shining even in the dim light. In its center, visitors could observe Amenhotep's massive granite sarcophagus lid etched with hieroglyphics. The site was first documented in 1799 during the brief Napoleonic conquest of Egypt. After a long history of excavation, looting and heavy damage, it was restored with support from the Japanese government and UNESCO. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, North Korea deploys special assets against South. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Olivia Nicholas, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat Disantuni. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day.